Ed, set the scene for us. What's going on around you, and where are these astronauts as they do make their way to the vehicle to head to the launch pad?
Yeah, the crew left Kennedy Space Center in the last 15 minutes. They got into their modified, what's essentially an RV, the lunar bus, and are on their way to the pad. And it's so difficult. There's no certainty in space, guys, right? Especially when human life is involved, and this is a human crew. But everything is tracking. You know, the fueling of the SLS rocket and launch system was completed at about 1 p.m. local time. And, you know, we are tracking as best we can to 6:24 p.m. Eastern time to take off. And I am not a meteorologist, as I said to Tim earlier on Bloomberg Television. But, you know, the biggest factor probably is the weather.
Well, how is the weather? That's where I wanted to go, because that is such a big factor of whether or not these things happen.
Yeah, officially, you know, the weather office, the meteorologists at NASA assign 80% favorable conditions. And what we're looking for right now out here at KSC is cumulus clouds that are within the vicinity of Launch Complex 39B. Essentially, the cumulus cloud, you're looking for two things. Can that cloud evolve into a rain cloud? That is a factor. But in proximity to SLS, if we do launch, what would the effect of SLS and the Orion spacecraft atop it going through a cumulus cloud mean? You know, the on board at the base of the SLS system is a rocket that is powered by hydrogen as the fuel and oxygen as the accelerant or oxidizer, and the lightning risk is very real. That's why there are 3 600 feet tall lightning towers around the launch pad, because lightning likes to find the highest point. So like all of this is very real, but it's weird, like everyone is very chill, very confident, cautiously optimistic.
How's it different? Well, how is it different than other? You've been to quite a few of these, and not necessarily, you know, directly related to what this crew is doing, because this is a first in 50 years. But how does this compare to other launches that you've been to?
Well, many of the launches that I've been to have been SpaceX, right? And they've been Falcon 9. Different technology, different design, different fuel, different size. If we go with Artemis 2 tonight, the combined SLS system with the Orion spacecraft, it's a 322-foot system that has solid motor rocket boosters on the side, capable of 8.8 million pounds of thrust at liftoff. That makes it the most powerful human-rated, human-certified system to ever launch from Earth. And like on paper, SpaceX's Starship, which I've seen as well, you know, is capable of much more power and thrust. But, you know, Starship is nowhere close to carrying humans at this moment in time. So that's the significance of it. And this is a system that's only flown once before, 2022, in an uncrewed mission. It's a program that is over budget and behind in literally years. So there is a lot riding on this. This is the big dress rehearsal for America and NASA's ambitions to return Americans, humans, to the moon.
So I want to go back to Matt Miller, who kind of, I think, approached me.
Matt was not happy.
He's like, you know, he put his iPhone in my face and just said, hey, you know, we had less than this, you know, when astronauts and when NASA first went to the moon. I mean, why is it so complicated? Why have there been so many problems? Why has it cost so much? Why, you know, taking out inflation, but why is this such a big deal when we've already been to the moon?
There's this distinction there, Carol, right? There's what's happened in recent history, and there's what's happened in history. In recent history, the Artemis program was hit by technology delays. For example, when they did the wet dress rehearsal of the system in February, they had a lot of issues with hydrogen. Is a great fuel for this use case, but because of the molecular composition of hydrogen, it requires very big tanks and it tends to leak. So that has been one issue that they've had to get over in the recent term. Artemis was first supposed to go in 2017. It didn't. It encountered delays. Then we had the COVID era. Eventually went in 2022. Now, in history, why have we not tried to go back to the moon since the Apollo era? Well, it just wasn't really a priority for any of the administrations of the day since 1972. You know, the Artemis program has its origins in the Constellation program that the George W. Bush administration launched in 2005. But when Obama took office, he wasn't that interested in the moon. It wasn't until Trump won where America, through NASA as the agency, became refocused on this goal.
But why is it important to have this goal? And I want to bring into, I know we've talked with you about this, or we've talked with the team about this, what China is up to. Like, why is it that everybody wants to kind of have some access to the moon again?
Yeah, there's two parts to it. There's the political or the geopolitical. China has a stated ambition to get to the moon by 2030. NASA has accelerated its ambitions to return Americans and allies to the moon as early as 2028. That is a space race for the modern era. And then there is the resources. You know, there are minerals, there is oxygen, there is carbon within the moon's surface and within the moon that are useful to humankind going forward. And the final kind of part B of that is that, you know, NASA still holds ambition to take Americans to Mars, and launching from Mars, establishing a resources base, a fueling base on Mars, makes it easier than getting through Earth's atmosphere because of the differential in gravitational field and pull. So those are all real stated reasons for NASA going after this.
Ed, I want to go somewhere where we went a little earlier on Bloomberg Tech, and that's to SpaceX. This in the context of SpaceX filing confidentially for an IPO. You had that piece along with Bailey Lipschultz, a Bloomberg exclusive, about the timing of this. You mentioned Starship, SpaceX's Starship, and a lot of the launches that you've been to have been for Falcon 9. SpaceX's huge Starship. Could Starship do what Artemis 2 is doing if Starship carried humans?
Yes, I mean, specifically for Artemis, what we reported 10 days ago and then the NASA administrator confirmed is there is a proposal on the table from SpaceX to come in and change how Artemis would run. In SpaceX's proposal, SLS would carry Orion, the spacecraft, into low Earth orbit. Starship would dock with Orion in low Earth orbit and push it the rest of the way to the moon before going down to the moon's surface. The IPO, what I understand from sources, Bailey helped me in the reporting of that, is that SpaceX filed confidentially for its IPO last night, right? Notified the SEC. But their rationale for going public is simply they need money to fund their future business plan for space-based data center. And there, Starship's at the heart of it as well. If that's ever going to work, Falcon 9 is not capable of carrying a data center in satellite form factor into orbit. Only Starship could do that.
Okay.
And the economics of that are measured on a $1 per kilogram basis. That's all anyone cares about. SpaceX is yet to prove that bit out.
So how do you think Elon Musk is watching tonight's launch? I think he'll probably weigh in on X, but how do you think he's watching it?
You know, Elon Musk typically is complimentary of his colleagues in industry and their achievements in the domain of space. He often will say, you know, space is really difficult, and what SpaceX did, particularly in the early days where they were on the cusp of bankruptcy and failure, you know, that is very hard to do. And so when others have made breakthroughs, including Jeff Bezos's Blue Origin, by the way, he's taken social media and been complimentary of it. You will have seen, you know, over time he's shared social media posts about the Artemis program, and it wouldn't be a surprise if he came out and wished them congratulations. But again, there is no certainty that we're going to go at 6:24 p.m. Eastern Time. There is a good chance, and so we have to wait and see what happens. I know that's frustrating.
Yeah, it's just kind of how it goes, right? It sometimes goes right down to the wire. Hey, before you go, if we may, we wanted to ask you about another story involving Microsoft and Chevron. Microsoft in exclusive talks with Chevron, the integrated oil giant, and the investment fund engine number one, over a long-term deal that would underpin a giant power plant in West Texas, providing electricity to a large data center campus. Is this just another sign of our times in terms of the AI and data center build and making sure you've got the energy to power it?
Yeah. I mean, the hyperscalers, that is Amazon, Microsoft, and Google, maybe with Oracle thrown in there too, are the biggest corporate buyers of energy. In the data center context, you need to have control of the grid, electricity, but how that electricity is generated can vary. You just need to guarantee supply. And basically, all these data centers that have been announced on paper, which we've been over, right, Carol, they have not yet got the energy supply on paper to match them. But in the context of what's going on with the Iran war, for example, people have come to realize nat gas or gas is much more applicable to data centers at the moment. That seems to be the direction of travel, as opposed to like how long it's going to take us to get nuclear sources, other traditional carbon fuel based sources of generating electricity.
I mean, this seems though that this is the bottleneck when it comes to getting these data centers online.
Yes, and also, the issue is, right, the data shows us, the Bloomberg data, because of that deep investigative piece last year, in zip codes where you build a data center right now, energy prices have gone up.
Yeah.
The counter argument from the hyperscalers themselves and from economists is that if you have big corporate buyers of electricity who buy at wholesale prices up front, it will be deflationary in the long run, provided that the supply exists. And right now it doesn't exist. This administration has put deregulation and expedition of permits at the heart of its AI strategy for that reason, to like get this stuff built.